All right, I'm here at the worldwide headquarters of Greenplum with Scott Yara, founder and president. Scott, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Doing very well, thanks. So tell us a little bit about what's happening in the world of data right now, and where Greenplum fits in, and a little bit about your guys' background.
Sure. So I think like most people out there sort of looking at the trends have seen kind of this enormous explosion of data that we've really had, I think really since the advent of sort of the internet and network-based computing. It's at that point, I think, when sort of machine-generated information coming off of web servers and streaming servers and global positioning satellites and RFID and sensor networks, we're just seeing sort of this explosion of data that we haven't seen really over the last 10, 15 years. And for the first time, businesses are really starting to think about what kinds of powerful services they can do. I think the internet-oriented companies like an Amazon, Google, Facebook, Twitter, etc. have really started to capitalize on the power of this information and sort of the associated relevance for things that make up your social graph or the kinds of things that you're interested in your friends' data. But now what I think we're seeing, which is really exciting, is also the very traditional industries, sort of the brick and mortar retail companies, financial services companies, its sort of impact in medical systems and healthcare. All of these things are really being transformed by data. And the really exciting opportunity for Greenplum is that the data infrastructure itself, software and systems to help store and process and analyze huge volumes of information, is still somewhat of a relative challenge and new opportunity for companies to provide disruptive technology in that area.
So where did Greenplum come from? It's based a lot on open source software, isn't it?
Yeah, the core of the Greenplum database technology started off using the PostgreSQL open source database platform. And over the last 7 to 8 years, we've really taken the internals of the software and really sort of refactored it, or almost sort of ripped out the guts, if you will, and built a massively parallel database kernel engine, sort of a parallel cost optimizer, and an executor fabric so that we could take all of this data and physically distribute it across all of these distributed database segments and operate on the data in parallel. It's sort of that parallel computing technology core that allows the Greenplum database to sort of store and process and analyze data 10 to 100 times faster than conventional database systems.
And so can you give me some examples of some people who would be using Greenplum and what they're using it for?
Sure. So it ranges from very large internet services like Skype and Fox Interactive, MySpace today, big telecommunication companies around the world, NTT Docomo, Reliance Communications, AIS in Thailand. We have big banks, Zions Bank Corporation, Deutsche Bank, large healthcare companies and retailers. Greenplum sort of passed about 100 sort of global 1,000 tier 1 enterprise accounts last quarter. And I think over the last 2 years, we've actually deployed probably more multi-hundred terabyte database systems than any company in the world.
Wow, very cool. So what do you see where you guys will be going, say, over the next few years? What are some of the trends that you're going to be following with Greenplum?
Sure, it's great, great question. I think one of the big opportunities that Greenplum's really focused and excited about these days is now that we've kind of built a solid technology platform that takes care of a lot of the data loading and storage and access sort of challenges that have existed in the past. We're really focused on how do we make data much more useful, and how do we sort of accelerate that time between which a customer or enterprise captures data and then derives sort of insight or value from it. And I think it'll take place in a few important areas. One is the level of analytic processing that can be done inside the database. So people are wanting to do very sophisticated analysis, whether it's graph processing, sort of vector and matrix oriented algorithms, whether it's looking at taking MapReduce as a programming language for data and being able to do that inside the database. As a very important initiative for us. The other is what I would sort of call in the areas of data collaboration. So how do we actually make data much more accessible to end users and allow them to take advantage of all the great visualization and analysis technologies that have been built by our partners, sort of just making sure that data gets in the hands of users much faster, much quicker, and much more in a self-service oriented way. And it's sort of represented in this really important technical vision that we set forth with the company about a year and a half ago called the Enterprise Data Cloud Initiative, which was really trying to set stage kind of a new kind of analytic infrastructure one that was a lot more virtualized, that was really driven by sort of self-service principles, and took advantage of kind of the latest in sort of general purpose systems and many core architectures and gigabit Ethernet and virtualization technologies. How could we take that as a disruptive computing platform and allow companies to store and use data in a fundamentally new way?
Cool. So just getting back to the present, if somebody says, "Hey, I want to get me a Greenplum,"
Yeah.
how do they actually go about deploying it? What is the hardware that you work with, and
Sure.
how do you actually install it?
Sure. So the great thing I think about our company is that we've really stayed pretty consistent to our vision over the last 7-8 years. Was that we really wanted to build a very scalable analytic database entirely in software, and one that could take advantage of the latest advances in hardware. And use sort of scale out massively parallel processing like the big internet companies like Google and Facebook and others have sort of pioneered over the years. And take that same scaling model where you could take the Greenplum software and run it across one machine or 10 or 100 or 1,000 machines using the same scaling principles. So today you can literally download the Greenplum database software off our website. You can go and put it on general purpose hardware. We work very closely obviously with Dell. We've been big fans of the PowerEdge series servers, starting with the R710, now moving to the C2100 and the C6100, and take those and deploy 10 or 20 of those together at a time to build really big database systems. And for us, I think that's actually been probably the most exciting thing in the industry. It's funny, a lot of people talk about the iPhone as really being this exciting new platform for software development. And Luke and myself, who's the other co-founder of the company, the CTO, we often talk about how for us, the most exciting thing to write software for us today is the 2-socket Nehalem server with a bunch of disk drives behind it. Because those cost a handful of thousands of dollars from companies like Dell, and allows companies to buy tens or hundreds of them. And we can really start for the first time companies thinking about having multi-hundred or multi-thousand core petabyte scale systems that are really affordable. And it's allowing companies to do very, very different and sort of transformational things with data that they haven't been able to do before that I think we're just now starting to see.
Excellent. Well, Scott Yara, thank you so much.
Thank you.